Ada was known in her town of Nemo in Anambra State as a beautiful, kind-hearted young woman who was always ready with a warm smile. She worked hard every day, balancing her job and her personal life while finding time to help anyone in need. People admired her generosity, but even more, they admired her loyalty to Emeka, her boyfriend of 2 years. Though Emeka lived far away in Awka, their love was strong, a bond that distance couldn't weaken. No matter how busy their days were, they made sure to talk every night, and each call made Ada's heart swell with happiness. Her friends would tease her, saying, "Ada, you must really love Emeka to wait so long." With a soft smile, she would always reply, "Love is worth every sacrifice." Their relationship was filled with laughter and dreams of a future together. Ada would call Emeka during her lunch break, and he would call her before he went to bed. They would talk about their days, sharing every joy and struggle, never letting the distance make them feel apart. Their conversations were often filled with promises of a life where they could finally be together, side by side, without having to say goodbye. For Ada, each word from Emeka was a reassurance that their love could overcome anything. But slowly, Ada began to sense a change in Emeka. Their calls grew shorter, and sometimes he seemed distracted, as if his mind was elsewhere. She tried to ignore the feeling of worry that crept into her heart, reminding herself that he was probably just busy with work. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, the unease wouldn't go away. She missed the warmth in his voice, the laughter they shared, and it pained her to think that something might be troubling him. One night, as they spoke on the phone, Ada noticed a sadness in Emeka's voice that she had never heard before. Gently, she asked, "Emeka, is everything okay? You seem different lately." There was a pause, a silence heavy with sorrow, before Emeka finally spoke. "I'm fine, Ada," he replied quietly. "Just a lot on my mind." Though his words were meant to reassure her, Ada's heart ached even more. She wanted to believe that everything would go back to normal, that whatever was bothering him would soon pass. But deep inside, a small voice whispered that something was wrong. Over the next few days, Ada tried to stay busy, hoping it would ease her worry. But every time her phone rang, her heart would jump, hoping it was Emeka calling to reassure her. Finally, after several sleepless nights filled with anxious thoughts, she decided to visit him in Awka. She missed him dearly and needed to know if something was truly wrong. She wanted to surprise him, to be there for him in person, to show him that she would stand by him no matter what. As Ada was preparing to make the trip, her phone rang, and Emeka's name appeared on the screen. She answered eagerly, her heart lifting at the sight of his name. But as soon as she heard his voice, her smile faded. Emeka sounded tired and broken, his words heavy with sorrow. "Ada, Chijioke is gone," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Ada felt a jolt of shock, her mind reeling. She remembered Chijioke from the stories Emeka had shared. He wasn't just a friend, he was family to Emeka. They had grown up together, shared countless memories, and had been there for each other through every hardship. "I'm so sorry, Emeka," Ada whispered, her own voice thick with emotion. She could feel his pain through the phone, each word he spoke filled with a grief that tore at her heart. Emeka was trying to be strong, but Ada could sense how deeply he was hurting. She wished she could reach through the phone and hold him, to tell him that everything would somehow be okay. As the hours passed, Ada stayed on the line, listening as Emeka poured out his memories of Chijioke. She offered gentle words of comfort, letting him express his sorrow without holding back. She knew there was nothing she could say to ease his pain, but she wanted him to know that he wasn't alone. Eventually, Emeka's voice grew softer, exhaustion taking over as he fell asleep, his breath steady on the other end of the line. Ada stayed, her heart heavy with both sadness and a growing worry, fearing that this loss might pull them apart. In the days that followed, Emeka became even more distant. His calls were less frequent, his messages brief and cold. Ada tried to be patient, telling herself that he needed time to grieve, that he would come back to her when he was ready. But with each passing day, the distance between them grew, and her heart ached with the fear of losing him. She missed the warmth in his voice, the comfort of their late-night conversations, and the promises they had once shared. One evening, after several days of silence, Ada decided to send Emeka a message, pouring her heart into every word. She told him how much she missed him, how she wanted to be there for him, to help him through this difficult time. She reminded him of the promises they had made, hoping that he would remember the love they shared. Hours passed without a response, and Ada's heart sank. She tried to remind herself that grief was unpredictable, that he would reach out when he was ready. But as the weeks went by, Emeka's sorrow seemed to grow heavier, and Ada feared that the weight of his grief was driving them further apart. She held on to the memories of their love, hoping that one day he would come back to her and that things would be as they once were. Then, one afternoon, Emeka called, his voice still filled with sorrow but with a note of determination. "Ada, Chijioke's burial is next week," he said softly. "I want you to be there with me. I need you by my side." Without hesitation, Ada agreed. She knew how much Chijioke meant to him and understood that he needed her support more than ever. She was willing to do anything to ease his pain, to help him say goodbye to his dear friend. On the day of the burial, Ada made the long journey to Akka. The town was quiet, filled with the somber atmosphere of grief. As she arrived, her eyes scanned the crowd until she spotted Emeka, standing alone by a tree, his gaze fixed on the ground. She walked over to him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. He looked up, his eyes red with grief, and without a word, Ada wrapped her arms around him, offering the silent support he so desperately needed. As the burial ceremony began, Emeka's emotions overwhelmed him. He sank to his knees, overcome with sorrow, and Ada knelt beside him, holding him close as he cried. She whispered words of comfort, knowing that there were no magic words to ease his pain but hoping that her presence could bring him a small measure of peace. They moved to a quiet part of the cemetery, away from the crowd, where Emeka continued to grieve, his cries growing softer as he released the weight of his loss. In the quiet of the moment, their sorrow brought them closer, an unspoken bond forming between them as they shared a vulnerability that only the two of them could understand. In the depth of their shared grief, they sought comfort in each other, their emotions raw and intense, a silent connection that seemed to chase away the emptiness, if only for a moment. But as they pulled away, reality settled back in, leaving Ada with a mix of love, compassion, and lingering guilt. She wanted to be there for Emeka, to support him through his pain, but she wondered if they had crossed a line they could never uncross. Emeka held her hand, sensing her unease, and they walked back to the crowd. Together, each lost in their thoughts. Ada knew that the pain of loss would not fade easily, but she was determined to stand by Emeka, to help him find a way forward. And though the weight of the day lingered, there was a new closeness between them, a deeper connection born from sorrow, a bond that gave them both strength. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to watch more of our videos.